Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Direct Edition. I'm your host, Dave, the guy that you listen to, some reason you find him relaxing. He's talking about himself in the third person, and that's Dave. On today's podcast, I think I'm going to cover a couple of different things. First off, I'm going to do a spoiler-free talk about Deadpool Wolverine, the new Marvel movie that has taken the world by storm, which everybody knew it was going to happen. Also, I'll be talking about maybe a little bit of a rebuttal on my end from last week's episode about comic coffins, and whatever else falls on my mind, so buckle up. It might get bumpy. Dave, why are you recording this today? I'm on about 5.5 hours of sleep. I didn't sleep well at all, which also makes me grumpy. Sleep is pretty much the only thing that, it's the only thing that really sets the tone for the day mentally for me and physically. If I sleep like 6 hours, 6.5 hours, which is my general sleep time lapse, whatever, then I'm good to go. But anything less than like 5 hours and 45 minutes, oof, it's dicey. It's dicey. You know, like I guess everybody has those things in their body that kind of sets the mood for the day physically, physically and mentally. You can't think about external stressors, like, you wake up in the morning and you're late for work, or you forget something at home, or, if you have kids, your kids are stressing you out a little bit more than usual. Like those things you cannot help. And those things will affect you no matter what, or maybe they won't affect you. But for me, sleep is the one thing, like I could wake up in the morning and feel like shit and be sick. But if I slept right, my mind, my brain, everything's kind of in working order, even if I feel like shit. So that's what I'm dealing with today. But I also was feeling a lot of things and wanted to talk, and had some points that I wanted to make. I'm having some conversations with some friends about today's episode after it dropped. And yesterday's YouTube episode, brought some idiotic comments about people telling me how I should handle comics at a garage sale that are waterlogged and 25 cents each, and, like things that they don't know. And I'm not even going to bother addressing, but I am going to talk about some other things having to do with online world versus real life. One of the things I will speak about is just a little Ed Piskor stuff. But first, before we even get into the internet side of things, I want to say my heart goes out to the Piskor family in a very heartfelt congratulations that Ed posthumously won the Eisner for his hip hop omnibus, which is, when he made it, he said it was the best book he ever made, and it is truly a great book and a great package. And so it was an award that was given to him, 4 months after his untimely death. And so big congratulations to the Piskor family for being in San Diego, being invited there to go to the Eisners and accept the award on his behalf. Bobby, Bree, and Justine, and Mama Piskor. I'm really happy for them. We are less than a month away from the Eddie P. Comic-Con, the first ever Comic-Con that was kind of done in his memory. It's arranged by his family. And Ed always talked about wanting to have a cartoonist kayfabe-centric Comic-Con. So, at least his legacy will be carried on in that. And I'll be in Pittsburgh for that. So excited to be hanging out there and hunting for comics with Jim, and helping out Justine sort through Ed's comics to put together stuff for sale for them. I offered to help, and, I just want to try and do whatever I can for, just to do it. And we got a really big week coming up on the channel. Supposedly, now, obviously, this could, by the time you hear this, I might actually have deleted this, but I'm supposed to be interviewing Bart Sears this week. If you don't know Bart Sears, he was the artist on Turok and Exo Manowar, but also did a column in Wizard magazine for years called Brutes and Babes, or Brute and Babes. No, it's Brutes and Babes. And then I'm supposed to be having the Piskor family on the channel to talk about Ed's legacy, the Comic-Con, all the good things. And then a couple of days after you hear this, I'm supposed to be interviewing legendary comic writer and editor Jim Shooter. So it's big stuff happening. And I'm going to be moving over the course of the next month, so expect your friend Dave to be stressed out, but I will try and get all of the episodes on time and everything, on both channels ready to go. So let's start off with Deadpool Wolverine. And like I said, I'll keep it spoiler free for the, even if you haven't seen this movie 2 weeks after it comes out, like not everybody's able to go to the movies when they want. But I saw it in Seattle at the Cinerama, which is the movie theater that Paul Allen actually had purchased in like the early 2010s, like 2012. 2013, and they renovated it. It's a single movie theater. They turned it into Cinerama, opened 2014, right when I moved to Seattle, and it quickly became one of my favorite, if not my favorite movie theater that I've ever been to. And so it closed right before the pandemic, and they had a lot of bad management issues after Paul Allen passed away. And so the Seattle International Film Festival, otherwise known as SIFF, they own a couple of movie theaters in the city. They purchased it, reopened it, SIFF Uptown now it's called. And I went to go see Deadpool Wolverine there with John and Aaron and John's son. It was great. It was so much fun. Like, it was everything that you could want from a Deadpool Wolverine team up. It was funny. It was hilarious. I shouldn't even say it was funny. It was hilarious. It was violent as all hell. It was a fucking bloody mess in the best way possible. Like, this is not a realistic movie. The violence isn't realistic. You got to go in mind with that. And it was very heartfelt. It was a romance movie. It was a romance movie between two mutants, and it was just perfect for what it was. Albeit the plot made zero sense. And I won't dive into too much of the plot, but I'll just say it's about the multiverse and the TVA, the Time Variance Association. Like, it's the plot's nonsensical, and it doesn't really matter. Like, you're not going there for a heavy plot. You're going there from a point A to point B to point C kind of plot with two great talents doing what they do best. And Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds have an on-screen chemistry that most actors and actresses and directors could only hope for. That's the thing. Like, you were going there to watch two guys who are real life friends play these two characters who absolutely fucking hate each other and want to kill each other every 5 seconds. The cameos were glorious. They were great. They were unsuspected, and I'm so glad that none of that stuff was ruined. And there were some inside jokes there where there's some homages to great Marvel Comics scenes or covers. It really was fan service on a level that, and I'm using that in a, that is a positive way. It is fan service on a level that I don't think we've seen. There is truly, like, because it was like, even if it was forced fan service, it was funny. And it was like tongue in cheek. Nothing felt out of place there. But yeah, the plot made really kind of no sense, and that's fine. But what really kind of makes me laugh, and I'm opinionated. You're listening to my podcast because you value my opinion or you want to hear what I'm going to say. But this movie being heralded as like, oh, it's going to save the MCU and like all that stuff. First off, it's not going to save the MCU because it has really almost nothing to do with stuff going forward. Secondly, the reason why the MCU, and I'm using this in quotes, needs saving is because of fans. Because luckily, I do not consider myself to be a part of this type of fandom where, and thank you to Derek N, for using this phrase because I'm going to steal it from you. There are most, or at least the majority of people that are vocal about bad movies, the bad MCU movies. They speak out of both sides of their mouths. On one hand, they say, oh, the MCU sucks. They got to go back to doing what they used to do that made things work. Now, this is also going to be combined with the announcement at San Diego Comic-Con that happened this weekend that Robert Downey Jr. is returning to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as Dr. Doom. And a lot of people who said that the MCU needed saving are now saying, oh, this is stupid. This is not like the comics. He shouldn't be playing Dr. Doom, blah, blah, blah. Well, which is it? You can't have the old cake that you loved and eat it too while complaining that the old cake doesn't taste the same anymore and it shouldn't be this way. You can't speak out of both sides of your mouth and have anybody really fucking care about your opinion or validate it. And, I'm not one of those people that hates the MCU or thought that it needed saving. The movies are the movies. The comics are the comics. But I also enjoy the movies. I think Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was one of the better ones because it was a Sam Raimi movie being a Sam Raimi movie. But, I am not the majority of the numbnuts out there that complain about everything because it isn't what it used to be. But then when they try to do something that makes those people shut up, they just complain more. And I choose to enjoy these things, as I talked about in many episodes. And, I may recognize that like the Eternals didn't really hit the way it should have, but it was a beautiful movie. And there were pieces of it that I really enjoyed. I think the only one I really didn't care for was Black Widow. And even Florence Pugh and Scarlett Johansson couldn't save that movie for me. I just didn't enjoy it. And it's the same thing with, we talk about Star Wars. Any of these things that have long-term fan bases, it's like insane to try to think that people are going to across the board enjoy it, or even majority enjoy it. Even 65% of the people enjoy it. And I enjoyed the fuck out of Deadpool Wolverine. I may try and see it again tomorrow or Wednesday during the day or something. And you're not going to hear me complain that the plot didn't make sense. I'm giving myself the room to say that the plot didn't make sense. That did not take away from my enjoyment of that movie at all. But there are so many people out there today, and it's just kind of why I like to reiterate that you do need to stop. And this is also for my well-being too. I need to say this to myself and hear it recorded every time I, edit this down a little bit. I'm going to hear myself say, you need to really just stop looking at what people are saying online. You need to stop and take a break or completely detach yourself from online discourse, because people hide behind their screens and their keyboards and they say whatever it is that they want, even though there is no fucking way, shape, or form that they would ever say something like this in person. And, I don't want to keep going in circles. I've been guilty of this before, but, I try to make sure that at least that I recognize it and I try to actively not be that. And, most of my friends that, I talk to on a regular basis, this is the point of having friends. Like you can bitch to them about things you don't like, and they can bitch to you, and you can be receptive to listen. You can say, I don't agree, but you can have this kind of conversation. And everybody in my life has always known that, I'm opinionated. That's just who I am. But getting back to the point of talking about Deadpool Wolverine, I remember going to see X-Men in 2000 or 99 when it came out. I forget what year it is. They kind of blur together a little bit. But I remember seeing Jackman Hugh on the screen for the first time after meeting him before I saw the movie on the first time as Wolverine. And I'm like, holy shit, this is Wolverine. This is that fictional character that I've been reading since I was a kid. And it was an easy transition. My eyes were just wide and I was like, I'm sold. And he's been in that role for almost 25 years. And even the bad movies that he was in, like Wolverine Origins or some of the Wolverine, and then Logan was great, and some of the X-Men movies are fantastic, and a couple that weren't, but he has been fucking perfect. And I wouldn't call myself a huge Deadpool fan as a kid. I liked the look of Deadpool. Rob Liefeld created him, visually and all that, and I always loved that. I didn't read too much of it in the last 20 years, but I like Ryan Reynolds, and he is the perfect person to portray that character. And in the end, this movie is just absolutely fun. Like, if you go into it looking for fun, that's what you'll get out of it. If you're going into it looking for some comic inside jokes and, a little bit deeper on the winks and the nods, you'll get it. Like, there is absolutely no reason you won't enjoy this movie, unless for some reason you hate fun. But on the heels of that comes the announcement this weekend, like I said, of San Diego Comic-Con, that Robert Downey Jr. is going to come back to the MCU. He's going to play Doctor Doom, and it's got people up in a yay, and then up in a, what, this is bullshit. This is not going to say, you cannot, comic book people, for those of you that aren't comic book people, they are literally the fucking hardest people to please in the world. That's why we like comics. Because we want an escape, but we're also impossible to please, I guess. I don't know. I'm not like that. I don't know. it's interesting because I assume that Mike Judge was a comic person growing up, but he creates Beavis and Butthead, and Beavis and Butthead basically are like the template for the people that sit there and just criticize everything. But we watch Beavis and Butthead because it's funny, like to listen to people just sit there and criticize things over and over in real life would be, just mental torture. The comic book guy in The Simpsons, Matt Groening, obviously a comic book person growing up, and then a comic book person in profession before he goes into animation, or a cartoonist, I should say. And the comic book guy, could you imagine like having to suffer somebody like that in real life? It's funny because it's on TV, but it's not funny if you have to suffer those people in real life. And I try not to suffer fools. I mean, it's fun to be negative sometimes. It is not fun to be negative all the time. So with the announcement of Robert Downey Jr. being Dr. Doom, Victor Von Doom, whatever, it's got some people in an uproar, and it's like, first off, this could be a complete swerve. They could be completely throwing people off because they're probably sick of listening to the internet try and, claim that they know what the casting is. But it's funny because this was a rumor a year ago that like he was going to come back and be like a variant of Tony Stark, but gone bad, and that's Dr. Doom. And like the purists, this isn't Dr. Doom. And everybody's got, I remember going back to when they announced that Ben Affleck was going to be Batman in Batman vs. Superman and then Justice League and all that. And at first I was like, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. And I probably wrote something online, like a tweet. I don't fucking get it. And then I thought about it for like a week or two, and I was like, I'm into it. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. I've liked pretty much every role that Affleck's been in. Even the movies that I didn't like, I still like him because he's actually he's versatile. You look at who he was in Good Will Hunting, and then, maybe like Dogma and then Chasing Amy and all the, Kevin Smith movies. And then, you go further into his career and you realize that he doesn't have a super range, but he does have range. And so, I love Robert Downey Jr. and I'm excited. I don't like, if it doesn't work, oh my God, my life will still go on. I'll still be happy. So it's just been fun and kind of excruciatingly painful at times to watch people's discourse and the way the people price gouge on spec comics. But I don't want to get too much into the weeds on comics. We did that last week. It's always interesting to watch people jump all over things while you don't. And then, like, okay, here's what I got to say. I was watching from the sidelines, just watching all the friends I have over at San Diego Comic-Con this weekend. I just choose not to go. I've never gone. And at this point, like, I don't really need to be around that many people in that situation. If I was going to go, I should have gone last year because Marvel and all the big comic book publishers and the studios stayed away from San Diego Comic-Con because after the strike and all that, like, with the strike going on, there wasn't really anything to talk about. So they had to focus on comics then. And I want to talk about something that was pretty, it's kind of disgusting to still, it makes me sad to still have to talk about this and still have to have a reason to talk about this. But somebody last week, some person on Twitter, I don't know her name, and even if I did, I would not give this person any more validation by saying their name. They posted an article about Ed Piskor. And first off, reading this article made my head hurt because it was full of kind of buzzwords and words that I don't have the biggest vocabulary. I'm not a scholar. I'm not an English major, but I do have a decent vocabulary. But I also read. I can read. So I understand words. And I can read. And so there was this article written by this girl on Twitter that was like just attacking Ed's character. And it was clearly put out the week of the Eisners so that, may damage his chance of winning because there are people that are still going after Ed. So this person put out this article and basically attacking Ed, who didn't know Ed, who never met Ed, and was literally just reading old interviews with him and then forming their own opinion. And I didn't realize it until his family started kind of posting pictures of Ed getting his high school diploma. And then I go and I found out about this article, and I read this article, and in the first like paragraph, it alleged that he never graduated high school and never got a diploma. So right off the bat, it's bullshit. Like his family's like, here's Ed getting his diploma, and this person. So unfortunately, this kind of thing spreads quick, and his brother, his sisters saw it, and like it's just more pain. His family's being driven to more pain for no reason. Ed's no longer here. Ed's gone. The reason for that is because his world was literally ended like that. And I'm not going to use buzzwords here. I'm not going to talk about certain things that everybody uses to describe this. What it is it's people that want to do something with their lives, and that is to take out other people's lives. There is no other way to really get around this. There is no nice way to say it. It's people who have nothing fucking better to do than attack others, even when they're fucking dead. Even when they're dead. What good does that do? What are you putting into the world? Who are you helping? How are you helping anybody by attacking a person's family that is gone? So this all comes, and it didn't blow up too big, but it blew up enough that it affected them, and it affected me. It put me in a really bad fucking mood, because I am now friends with Justine, and I am now communicating with her on a daily, if not every other day basis. And it just sucks to have to like know that these people are going through this and for no reason. And then, Ed wins the Eisner this weekend, and that ignites a whole other batch of shit from people. And it's just like, I try not to let it get in, but I'm a sensitive person. Believe it or not, I'm a sensitive person, and I'm an empathetic, sensitive person. And you don't want to look at these things, but people are being affected. So it's like, I want to have a better understanding as to what these people are being affected by. And it's not just his family, but it's, it's kayfabe kings, and it's friends in the community, and people that really cared about Ed, and people that care about Jim, and I care about Jim too. And it's just like, you want to understand what's going on, and you just, it's unbelievable the things that people will write about somebody like this, knowing that the only people that are going to see it are friends and family. And even if even if he was still here, it's just like, you don't know this person. Like, if you're going to write something online about somebody's sister, or about somebody knowing that they're not there and their sister's going to see it, their brother's going to see it, you better back that fucking stuff up and say it to their face, because you never would. And this is the real problem that I have with this world. And I didn't fully realize, getting into this. I was never a huge online person. I had my Twitter account, I had my Facebook account, both gone. I have my Instagram account. Instagram's pretty harmless, it's just pictures, or at least it used to be. But I didn't really fully understand. Maybe it was being naive. Maybe it was just like, because I don't spend time here, I don't really know it. Like, I would never comment on somebody's thing, aggressively. Like, if I saw you post a picture of something, I would never be like, oh, you're a fucking asshole. I hope you fucking die. You piece of shit, burn in hell. Like, I would never do that. And if I did, it was probably when I was drinking, which was a decade ago, and I don't remember it. And I apologize if I ever did. But I just don't get it. And I know none of these people, as I said last week, they're not real. Even though what they say hurts people, they're not real people. There might actually be real people, but they're not real people. And so it was just something that kind of really stings when you watch it happen from the sidelines to people that you don't even know, or people you do know. Other than that, I'm glad that he won the Eisner. It's well deserved. On top of that, big shout outs to Becky Cloonan, and Becky Cloonan for winning 2 Eisners, and then Tula Lote for co-winning one of those Eisners with Becky for Somna. If you'd heard me talk about this book, Somna, which came out at the end of last year and then finished up this year, was one of my favorite books of all time. And both Tula and Becky were on my show, and we got to talk about this book. And I'm really, really proud of the work that they put down that got them the award. And big also shout out to Daniel Warren Johnson too. He won 2 Eisners for his work on Transformers. Effectively, what he did with Transformers, He took people like me who aren't Transformers fans and turned me into a Transformers fan. And then he also just made the Transformers fans happy too. Some of them got angry because killed Bumblebee in the first issue, but you got to break some eggs to make a Transformer omelet. You got to transform some eggs to make I'm not even going to keep going. Let's keep on this positive note. A couple other really cool positive things. Last week, me, and Andrew, Mr. Andrew P., we were both guests on the Jack Kirby podcast, which is the kind of standard podcast for Jack Kirby. Like, it is the podcast for Jack Kirby fans and for people that want to learn about him. It's run by Tommy Lombardozzi and Mike D. And they invited us on to talk about our zine, The Many Faces of Jack Kirby. And I had a blast with them. I know Andrew enjoyed it too. Both of those guys are New Yorkers. They're Italian New Yorkers. So, listening to their voices, even as they talked about ball sweat, it was a comforting place to be. Not in the ball sweat, but just in that conversation, because I grew up around people like that. Those are my people. I often will tell people, Italians from the East Coast, specifically the tri-state area, and Jewish people from the tri-state area, pretty much the same. Like, the value structures are the same. The family structures are kind of the same. The way we talk, like, Italians lean on the word motherfuckers, more than Jewish people do, but Jewish people kind of say, oi, So it's just, they're very similar. And like, if you watch Goodfellas, or you watch, Goodfellas, and then watch like a season of Curb Your Enthusiasm, you'll kind of get it. The similarities in structure are there. The religious background may be different. So we were on the podcast, and it was a great time. And I would love to sit down with those guys again and do another episode. And then you can find that, by the way, on all major podcast platforms. Jacked Kirby. I think we were in episode 254, whatever it was. It was you go back into their thing and you look for The Many Faces, and you'll find that episode. And then I was a guest on Comic Art Live, hosted by Bill Cox, and that is the gentleman who created comicartfans.com, which is basically like the hub for original comic art that exists. And they're Bill Cox and now Kazra Gambari, my friend, he is the CEO of Comic Art Fans, and the two of them put on OAX this year, and I can't wait for next year. So I got to be on their collector's showcase. It's on YouTube, and you can find it as well on their YouTube channel, and it was so much fun. It was like a little over 2 hours, and basically they asked me to pull out 15 to 20 of my favorite original art pieces so that I can talk about them. And so it's about 45 minutes of kind of like an interview and just like a chat. And then we got to showing the art, and I got to tell stories and why the art meant something to me and why I bought it or whatever. I get to basically show and tell. And I don't get to do it that often. It's hard enough to create content as a content creator on YouTube and on this podcast. And it's also super hard to do a show and tell without being prompted. Just because it's just human nature. Like, I'm not a super boastful person. I'm happy to tell stories, but I'm also happy to listen. I like being asked questions. I like having somebody engage me instead of me being the person engaging my guest. So it was so much fun to do that. And I think one of the other reasons, and I think this is one of the things that prompted me to record today is, there's a piece of this, and I think anybody that's a creative and doesn't really matter what kind of industry or whatever, genre you're creating in, if you're a writer or anything, if your stuff is going to be seen by public people, then there's always going to be a little bit of imposter syndrome. And I deal with it a lot, even though sometimes I don't recognize that I deal with it. And Alex Pardee was one of the first people that I had a really good conversation about imposter syndrome with. It's just sometimes you think that, like, what you're putting out there is garbage, or everybody's going to hate it, or the fact that, for me, sometimes it's the fact where I put something out like this podcast and I ask people to, give me some feedback or YouTube. And this is not the fault of the listener. It's just kind of human nature. Sometimes the only feedback you get is negative feedback, and it's not constructive feedback. It's just straight out negative feedback, with a negative YouTube comment or just, somebody hitting the dislike button. And, I got to keep in mind, and I, will always be grateful to Ed Piskor for vocalizing this to me. It's just like, when you get that kind of negative feedback, it just means that new people are looking at your show or listening to your podcast. And I try to keep that in mind, but, it definitely does, the power of positivity when it comes to people that do listen to your show or do watch your show and like it. Like, the power of positivity is super strong. So sometimes when I want to talk on my YouTube channel and show stuff off, I get self-conscious. I'm just like, oh, does everybody just think I'm sitting here bragging, forgetting the fact that people are watching because they want to be there? People don't begrudgingly go to your live shows. They don't begrudgingly listen to an entire podcast. They are listening. You are listening because you're enjoying this. So it's also, it's hard to speak your mind on that, but also, as the listener, keep in mind, like, this is something that you should be telling yourself. Like, if you're creating something, or if you're thinking of creating something, you should remember that when people do take in that creation and they take it in whole, and maybe they say they listened and they liked it, that's like really all you need, because that means that they're going to come back, and it means that they didn't shut it off. And so it's really tough sometimes just walking around being a human, trying to keep your head up and thinking like, yeah, there are, people that are listening to your thing, or people that are still in your life that are your friends. Like, they're there for a reason. People don't begrudgingly stick around. I mean, some people do, but people, generally don't begrudgingly stick around if they don't want to. So I don't know how I got from comic art fans to that, but that was just, yeah, I feel that a lot. I deal with this stuff a lot. And like I said, I'm on maybe about 5 hours and 15 minutes of sleep, when it's just like that bad time. Like, it needs to be like 5.5 more, whatever. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. But yeah, it was, I got to give a shout out to Kazra, and I've said your name like 3 different ways. Kazra, whatever the hell I just said. Anyway, got to give a shout out to Kaz and Bill for having me on. And I think there's going to be some more stuff in the future with me and Comic Art Live and Comic Art fans, because I believe in it. It's like what I love at the core of it. It's what I love. I love art, and I love talking to people about art. I love talking to artists about art. I love watching them create. I love supporting them. And so I can't think of a pure force to be reckoned with than a place that advocates for artists, collectors, and the kind of intermingling of both. And that's really comic art fans in a nutshell. It's like, here's your artists, here's your collectors. All right, let's make a clubhouse for that, and let's make it an inclusive clubhouse. And I really have to impress that upon anybody and everybody, is that I'm an outsider when it comes to the kind of original art world. I've only been in it really been in it for like 2.5 years. I have always been aware of it. I've had a friend that had a really big original art collection that we'd always talk about it. But, as deep as I am now is the deepest I've ever been. And I've felt nothing but welcoming and just friendliness from all sides. Some of the reps and some of the big collectors I've talked to and met. And so I think I can be, if that's where I land, I can be a really good ambassador for that world. Even if I say weird shit sometimes, or I, have an alter ego named Comic Tim. No, he's not here. But yeah, I am excited for OAX next year, and I'm excited for whatever comes down the pipeline with comic art fans. So hopefully, coming down the pipeline soon, you're going to see a little bit of uptick in production on this podcast, and that's going to be my goal moving into my new house and kind of developing a studio for podcasting. I also want to just give a big shout out to Jim Mafood, because if you're not watching Ink Pulp Live, which if you know who Sean Crystal is, he's a comic artist and a teacher and a soon-to-be tattoo artist. He has a channel called Ink Pulp. He has a podcast which is pretty well known in the comic industry, or even outside of it, because it's extremely like motivational, with Eric Canetti and Matteo Scalera. But he started a new show about a month and a half, 2 months ago with Jim Mafood called Ink Pulp Live, where they pick kind of like a topic or a theme, and they draw live, and they talk about comics, they talk about art, very motivational stuff, very positive. And I'm trying to make sure that I drive home the fact that I'm only going to try and promote positive kind of communities. And this past weekend, they did a show on Sunday at 420, and it was just, kind of draw whatever. And Jim gave a big shout out to the Many Faces of Jack Kirby zine and showed off the book and flipped through it, and I've got a couple orders coming in. So I just want to say thanks to that. That's a big deal. Like, I'm in the position where if I'm able to shout somebody out, then I will, and drive more people to their channel or to buy their book or something like that. Like Daryl, Read Your Comics Daryl. He's got one of my favorite channels, and I watch it all the time, and me and Daryl shoot videos together, and people like Japan Book Hunter, like Sean. Sean's got a great YouTube channel and a great business where he sells rare manga across the sea, across the Pacific Ocean. So, check out Read Your Comics and check out Japan Book Hunter. And if you're buying something from Sean, you can be like, hey, Dave sent me over here. Maybe I'll give you a discount. I don't know. He might, but you should support him anyway, because he's a small business. And we don't have too many of those that are staying alive. Every day, a new small business may be born, but like at least 2 die, and we are relegated to shopping at places like fucking Target and Target. So support your local comic book stores too. We've got a dying breed of comic book stores, so I always advocate for people to do that. Record stores, coffee shops, any place that you can be a patron of, where the person that rings you up, the person that serves you, whatever, maybe I'm using that as a metaphor, they own that spot. Like, it's a big deal, and it's definitely going to help. So just trying to stay positive in dark times, or at least in weird times. I want to say thank you for listening to this new episode of Direct Edition. And before you go, don't leave. Please rate the podcast on the platform that you are listening to this on. Help me promote it. Throw a comment down. Do anything to interact with it. That way it pushes it out to new subscribers. And then eventually I am Conan O'Brien and I'll need a friend, which isn't going to happen. But anyway, I'm Dave. This is Direct Edition. You're the listener. I love you, and I'll see you next week.